Okay, so we're on to a different topic, and this topic is budgeting and household expenses. And it's a weird title for a topic because we're going to spend most of this topic talking about motor vehicles. And that has to do with the fact that in the general maths before it got changed to standard maths had a big case study on motor vehicles. And so while they decided they wanted to get rid of those case studies, they didn't want to throw all the content out. So we end up going back to motor vehicles a little bit. So the first and the last lesson will talk a little bit about budgets and household bills, and the middle lessons will all sort of take a focus on motor vehicles, looking at those kind of issues. But first up today, we're looking at household bills, and it's just that ability to be able to understand the bills that you get and be able to read the information off them. Obviously, pretty hard to budget if we don't understand how our charges are being calculated. So here we've got an example bill from AGL. And there's a bunch of information we've got to answer about this. So I think I might use a bit of highlighter here. So this first question, the date the bill was issued, we need to go find that on there. This is going to require a little bit of squeezing in and squeezing out because it is in a bit fine print, but we can still see, we just let that slowly come back into focus. There's the tax invoice issue date right there. So the 5th of June 2014, so we can write that down below. So the 5th of June 2014. Okay. And the date that the payment is due. So I'll grab my blue highlighter for that one. That one's usually quite bold. Most companies are quite keen for you to see that. So they've got that there as the 26th of June is the due date. So I'll just put that one in blue and we'll put next to it the 26th of June 2014. Next is the period the bill relates to. So we'll go find that on the bill. Usually that's a little bit smaller, but a bit easier to see than the issue date. And you can see up here, there's the bill period from the 5th of March to the 30th of May. Okay, so let's write that down there. So the 5th of the 3rd, 14 to the 30th of May, 14. Okay, once again, something that's usually fairly well highlighted is the total amount due. For that I've used yellow, I'll use green. So the total amount due, that's usually quite bold and right there. Now the total amount due would include obviously the charges for this particular quarter plus any outstanding fees that you haven't paid from the previous month, or if you paid too much the previous month, it'll be a little bit less than what your new charges are. So they are two different things. The bill is kind of like a balance due to bring your account back to zero. And I went and highlighted it, but I didn't remember the number, 295.17, so we'll write that in there. Okay, and we'll flip over the other side here. And we've got the amount paid last time. Now this is always a little bit harder to find on a bill. And what we've got to go looking for on the bill is that part of the bill that relates to I guess the changes that have happened in the account. So in this particular account, it's on the second page. So you can see here there's a previous balance of $72.28 and there's our previous payment there. So that'll tell us, so $72.28 was how much was previously paid. So you can see that this bill is considerably more than the previous bill. That might be due to more power consumption, or it might be just due to the fact that the person's moved in recently and they only had a small bill period the previous time. So we'll write that in there, $72.28 was how much we paid last time. And then in order to be able to budget, we kind of need to know what the basis upon which we're being charged is. So if I pull up this colour highlighter there, that's pretty much the same as the one I just used. I'll pull a different one up. We'll go a really bright pink. How's that sound? So how much does the person charge per kilowatt hour? That's usually something that's going to be not on the front page of the bill. It's likely to be somewhere else. And you can see here, there's the peak supply charge. Now I'll just make this highlighter nice and small because I'll need to, because something else is there we'll need. So there is the supply rate. Now there's a peak charge there in kilowatt hours, and underneath you'll see supply charge, but you see it's calculated based on the number of days. And the question actually asked how much are they charged per kilowatt hour. So we need to look at that particular part of the bill. So they're being charged $0.244 per kilowatt hour. So we can write that down the bottom. Okay, and finally, apart from actual power usage, other items that they're charged for. So we'll go look for that information there. So once again, we'll probably go to the same part of the bill. So once again, we're looking at this second page, and obviously while we were looking for what their charge was per kilowatt hour, we saw that supply charge. So there's a supply charge there that is just based on days. So it doesn't matter if you don't use electricity at all, you're going to get charged a certain amount for just being connected. As well as that though, there's also this payment processing fee that they're being charged as well. Now that might be an optional thing, perhaps if they paid a different way. So often it's a more expensive if you're going to pay with a credit card or with cheque or with cash. Whereas if you set up a direct debit or something like that, often the companies won't charge. There's also obviously a guaranteed discount just down below here. I'll just put a little dot there. Because it's not a charge, we won't include that, but it's also worth noting that there's a discount down below as well. So we've got a supply charge and a payment processing fee. So if we go back down here, we can write those in. So we've got a supply charge and a payment this lesson's relatively straightforward, but it's sort of, you can't sort of talk about budgets without first taking into account how much things actually cost and why they cost that much. So we might, I think later in the module, or it might be in another module, we might talk about things like energy saving light bulbs, which while they cost more to buy, cost so much less money to run, that there are ways in which you can budget to spend less essentially than what you're spending now. Okay, so we've got this one past HSC question. Electricity costs 27 cents per kilowatt hour. How much does 20 kilowatt hours cost? So that's a relatively straightforward case of let's just multiply the cost per kilowatt. So 0.27, being very careful here. We want the answer to be in dollars. In this case, the rate is in dollars, so that's fine. But obviously, if it was in cents, we'd change it to dollars first. And we're going to multiply that by the total number of kilowatt hours used, which is 20. And we can just do that on our calculator. So 0.27 times by 20. And that gives us $5.40. There we go. And that's all there is to that particular lesson. When you get into the text work, most of these questions are just about being able to read accounts, find the information on them, or for instance, with this one here, we've got a graph and we've got to be able to determine the information from that graph. Okay, so have a go at those questions there. They should not be too hard. And for the second lesson, we'll get into motor vehicles, I'm pretty sure.